I have to say, anything you pop up in, I'm always very delighted. I do want to ask about Maisel later, but I was so because I'm obsessed with the marvelous Mrs. Maisel. But I was so excited to see you pop up in there, and because I remember you so distinctly from Spotlight, and I feel like I don't know that diner scene you had with Rachel McAdams. I feel like that just I went back and watched it just yesterday, and I was like, oh wow, this is very vividly lodged in my noggin. Uh,
Mine too.
yeah,
I'll
I
never
can.
get it out.
No,
Um,
yeah. So I'm happy that now you get to do like lately we've been treated to a lot of comedy. So yeah, long
yeah.
story short, thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. I didn't realize until very recently that you were made a series regular for season 3 of Only Murders. And I wanted
Yeah.
to know like how that felt, just because I feel like that's an exciting thing when you are a part of a show for, for a couple of seasons, and then you get sort of like they bump you up a little.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Can I just, my Alexa is talking to me without me asking. So can we just hold 1 second?
Sure.
Alexa, stop. Perfect way to start this interview. I think she's trying to get me to listen to the Spider-Verse theme. She did that last night out of nowhere. it,
Oh.
yeah, I don't know. Okay, so what is it like to be a series regular? It
Yeah.
is
Okay.
it's obviously a dream come true. I feel really happy that this is the show that this that it's happening on, because it's
Mhm.
the best job of my career, I would say,
Mhm.
in every way. Uh, it also has a little bit of, well, it's about time, just overall, as far as I've been doing this for a really long time.
Mhm.
Um, so I have to remember that. I mean, I'm extremely grateful and humbled by it and all of that, but it also does feel like it's about time. And thank God it's this show that I love so much that I get to be committed to and have a have be a larger part of my life. It's really nice to know that that's my job.
Yeah, I guess I can't remember what I'm pulling this from, but it's sort of it might be a drag race quote. I'm really pathetic, but it's something like the thing that you are most looking forward to, maybe it hits at the right time, like when it's meant to happen. So maybe series regular for Only Murders, because this I love how obsessive everyone is about this show, because if you're a fan of Only Murders, you are a very, very devout fan like I am. So I can't imagine how that must feel to have, a dream job and then have it to come through like that on an even bigger level. Uh,
Yeah, I do think it happened at the right time. I don't know that I would have
mhm,
been, I played so many different characters with that are all very memorable in their own ways. I feel like Howard is so complex and has gotten more
mhm.
complex with each season. Uh, in the first season, really, he had two qualities. He loved his cat and was a gossip, and they have really expanded on that in the coming seasons. So I do think it's a case of the right time. This was the right job at the right time, and
Mhm.
I'm really thrilled about it.
Hey, I will say that as someone who I've always been a cat person, I've had cats my entire life until recently. My husband and I um adopted a dog, but I feel like it needs to be better cat. I don't like how people treat cats in movies and TV shows essentially. So, but I love that
Right.
Howard is so Howard loves his cat so much, and I mean it sounds like a joke, but I mean this when I say that I am glad that we get some positive female parent representation.
Right, right.
I dig
Yeah,
that, especially a queer character. So yes.
yeah.
Um, I okay. So Howard, I love how much Howard just sort of like bursts into the room a lot of times. Like I think it's episode 2 where he does not get to actually enter the room, but he tells Charles that he has a great idea for a capsule episode of Only.
Hmm.
I feel like his brain is always turning. And I wanted to know if you gave any thought as to what Howard's capsule episode would be about. Because for some reason that question that kept lingering in my brain.
I think it would be through the eyes of Evelyn. It would be an episode through the eyes of the late Evelyn, because Evelyn was, walking around the building during season one, was part of the mystery and
Mhm.
knew things that we humans didn't know. So I absolutely think it would have been a capsule episode about from the cat's point of view. Shows have done episodes from a dog's point of view. I don't think there's ever been a cat's point of view episode. So that's what Howard's idea would have been.
Get John Hoffman on the phone. Oh my god. Just strap a GoPro to her back. Now, granted, it would probably be short because the cat would probably shake it off, but
Right.
yeah. I wanted to know if you think that Howard feels that he needs to overcompensate for Jackie Hoffman's character's meanness.
Overcompensate for it? You mean
Yeah, because like
it-
anytime that you folks are together, especially just the two of you, I feel like you guys are two extremes standing next to each other, and I think that's really, really funny. Like,
well, I've known Jackie for about 20 years. When I
oh my
had
god.
my first job was at a theater company called Drama Department, and she used to do this solo show called Jackie Hoffman's Valentine's Day Massacre, and I worked in the box office in the office when she would do these shows. So I've known her for so long, and I have such a soft spot for her and all of her curmudgeonly ways. I find them really charming. I think Howard is. I mean, Howard's very extreme in his emotions, and I think he is emotionally in tuned enough to know that there can only be one cranky person at a time.
Yeah.
So he steps back a bit when he's with Uma, and lets her have the cranky spotlight. Um, but then when he's alone, all bets are off.
Okay. God. Well, I kept thinking about theirs. I think it's the scene where where the main trio comes to the wake, and you folks are there, and then it's something about the way she said, "Mrs. Goddamn Gambolini," and you're just like you're in the frame and you're smiling when she said that. It made me laugh. Um, so whether that is purely accidental, chalk it up to a choice. And I actually think I call myself a former ticket jockey. I worked at box offices for
You did?
oh yeah, I did it when I was in college in Pittsburgh. I did it in Miami. I was like a shift supervisor in Rochester, New York. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised there's not a you should write a sort of like workplace comedy about working in a
I did. It's called Jack in
oh,
a Box. I won a Writers Guild award for it. It was a web
well, I'm an
series.
idiot. Okay.
No, it was a web series that I did in 2009 to 2013. And it was like right when web series were starting up. And I worked in a box office for 12 years.
God.
And Jackie was on it. Jackie was in an episode. Um, I worked in a box office for 12 years, and I started writing it just as something to do and to teach myself how to act on camera and write for other people. And
Okay.
I would film it in the morning before my shift at the theater next door so that my bosses didn't know I was doing it. But then it started getting attention, and I eventually had to tell them. But I worked in a box office, and I used to take vacation days to do plays. I used to pretend I was sick to shoot an episode of 30 Rock or Orange is the New Black. I would pretend I was sick. And it was a big, huge part of my life working in box offices.
I'm literally on the website right now. I sort of want to call off my day job and just sit there and watch this. Every single box office I've worked in, they're like, there needs to be a show. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Blowing in my mind right now. Okay. I wanted to ask about the relationship between or maybe Howard's real opinion of Howard and Bunny, just because, in during the wake scene, he refers to her as a bitch. But then later, when it's like her goodbye party, there's something about the tone of your voice that I think is very sweet, where you were like, "Do you like the decorations?" And even though you're feverishly taking the minutes, I don't know. I for some reason the tone of your voice really stuck out to me as very kind. And I'm not sure if that is something that is just Howard, being able to read the room and
Yeah,
sort of adapt like that? Yeah, can you tell me about that?
that's a really good question. I think that Howard, I think Howard, there's always at least two things going on at the same time. So I think
Hmm.
he's terrified of Bunny and does think she's a bitch, but he also responds to that, and all he wants is her approval. He wants everybody's approval. He
Yeah.
wants to, because she's a bitch, he wants to see if he can break that and appeal to her soft side. And I think that we get one line about Howard's mother in season 2, and it's a doozy. I mean, she sounds mean,
Hmm.
and I think
Yeah.
probably, but there's probably a mother-son sort of dynamic between him and Bunny. I think it really, at least what I felt as the actor, it was like breaking my heart to watch her lose control of the one thing she loved so much, which was taking care of the building.
Hmm.
And watching that fight between her and Christine Coe was a masterclass in tactics of just the power dynamic kept shifting. It was very, it was a very emotional thing to watch, even though our show's a comedy.
Yeah.
So I think the tone you might have been picking up on was truly like I felt bad for Bunny in that moment. I also had read that episode, and that episode is so beautiful, and it really, what the show is so good at is taking characters that are, you think are one thing, and
Hmm.
then exploding their lives into sort of making them blossom into a much more dimensional character.
Yeah.
So Michael, the actor, loves Bunny, and I think Howard has a complicated relationship with her, but uh, has a real soft spot.
I also think there is like and forgive me if this is totally off base, but I feel like I think there is like an innate thing about a lot of queer people that wants to appeal to everybody, and whether like that, not appeal to everybody, but sort of like getting close to some people where their outward appearance can sort of be one thing, but you kind of like get to know the real person. I don't know. I do love that
Mm-hmm.
episode so much, and I think that you're totally right. What Only Murders does so well is presenting like an outward appearance of somebody, but then behind closed doors, whether it's just the audio, the camera capturing it, or it's other characters seeing it, it's just sort of this beautiful peeling back of everything. I don't know. I feel,
Yeah,
and I like the mystery to it. I think the mystery just of uh, everybody's personal lives on this show is. I like that it's kept over there, and we don't know all of it.
yeah, and it all unfolds in such a amazing way. As far as I didn't know really anything about Howard going into season 2, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
like to know. I don't. I like to know sort of broad strokes about what the season will be, but I really don't like to know too many secrets. I like to find them out as I get the scripts.
Mm-hmm.
So every episode, there was a new detail about him that was so interesting to me. Like, oh, he's a librarian. Oh, he's. I mean, it's always been very clear that he's lonely and he wants to be part of something bigger than himself, and really just craves uh, some sort of community. And he's trying to get in there with the
Yeah.
trio, um, but learning he has this Yodelshop quartet, which who knew that Howard was uh, making music on the side. It was always a real treat to see what the writers give him and all of the characters. It's just great little details every episode.
Yeah. That Yodel shop. I'm sorry. That I have a musical theater background, so it's sort of like as soon as in the blackout episode, when we really get to hear Howard sing with Jonathan. First of all, what a beautiful section of the script for you two to play. But I don't know, there's something I wanted the first time I watched it, I was like, is this a real thing? Is Yodel Shop a thing? I was like, uh
Yeah,
yeah, it's so crazy. But that I love that scene between the two of you. And I did want to ask about that. I wanted to know, like, when do you think was the last time that Howard took a risk for his love life? Because he is lonely and because he is so desperate to be a part of something, I wondered if he like shoved down that part of himself. And when he meets Jonathan, that's really, I love how you like light up in the in the darkness between the two of you. So
yeah.
I'm so the sort of rambling question, but I just kind of want to just ask about the blackout
No,
episode and asking about if this is new for Howard, I guess, pursuing this.
I think, well, first of all, the Blackout episode was such an amazing surprise for me because I had mentioned offhandedly to John Hoffman that I really had never had a true love interest on screen. I've always
Mm-hmm.
had either an unrequited love or a person I was obsessed with or a husband that stands next to me, but we never speak. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that was what I was used to as far as my romantic life on screen. And to have them in the midst of this giant murder investigation take this gentle, beautiful moment to give a character like Howard that looks like me this such a sweet, full, lovely, romantic story to play was surprising, truly
Mm.
surprising, and such a gift, and really got really let me flex a muscle that I'm not used to flexing on camera. I mean, I'm very
Mm-hmm.
romantic in real life, but on camera, I haven't gotten to do that. So that just purely the script itself was a surprise and a gift, and I was really I am so grateful that I get to have a love interest,
Yeah,
especially Jason Vesey, who is the best.
he's
Um,
he's so handsome. Yeah.
incredible. He's incredibly handsome, incredibly talented, and I couldn't have asked for a better person to be cast in that
Yeah.
role because he yodeling was very nerve wracking for me. I am not musical theater trained. I am not
Mm-hmm.
musically trained. I
You sound
learned,
great.
well, thank you. Thank you. It took a lot of work, but he helped make me really comfortable. Um, but it was, it was a really wonderful scene to play because I went in very nervous, just technically about the yodeling, because John had mentioned the yodeling earlier before we started shooting. He called me one day and said, "Hey, do you think you have a yodel in you?" Crazy question. Do you think you have a yodel in you? And I just said, "Yes, absolutely." And I didn't. So I immediately went to YouTube. I learned how to crack my voice. I learned the most basic yodel, and I was like, "I'm gonna be fine." And then we get the script for episode 8, and it's not just yodeling; it's yodeling the sound of silence. And I was like, "Well, how do I translate this very basic yodel I learned from YouTube into one of the most iconic songs ever?" So they set me up with this guy Dan Faber, who was my yodel coach and was there and helped me. But what I decided going in was it wasn't important that Howard, the character, was a good yodeler. What was important that it was he was a passionate yodeler,
Passionate. Yeah. Okay.
passionate, and I knew he was a nervous yodeler because he was doing it in front of someone for the first time. I'm not sure that Howard. I mean, this is not written, so I preface this statement I'm going to make, but it would be my assumption that that apartment Howard is living in is his mother's or someone in his family's because
Mm.
it's decorated in a way that reads old lady, and I believe that could have been Howard's taste, but I do believe it's something family related to that apartment. I do think that he's a man of a certain age who has a complicated relationship with a mother who is living alone with a bunch of cats. I am not sure who works at a library. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure he's taken many risks as far as romance
Mm.
goes,
Yeah.
but I think I think like everybody in the building, this investigation and the fact that there's all this excitement in the building is making people open up in ways that's surprising to them. So in a way, I feel like all the murder is making Howard blossom as a person. It's making him take risks and realize how fleeting life is, and yeah, I think it is very bold what he does with Jason. It's at least
Yeah.
bold for Howard, but um, the Doctor, I think it's Doctor Stanley, Doctor Grover Stanley, um, gives him that great advice, like you in that episode, and I think that helps him make the move. It's also like I appreciate that. I find it very familiar. Someone who is afraid to talk to someone because they think that person is out of their league,
Mm-hmm.
and and I love that he was so wrong about that. I think in the wrong
Yeah.
hands, with the wrong writers in the wrong hands, this relationship could have ended with embarrassment for
Mhm.
Howard. And at a moment, we think it's going to end poorly because of the cat allergy, but it ends really sweet, and I think it continues really sweetly.
Mhm.
And I think it's just that that's why those writers are so great. They don't take the obvious route; they always dig deeper.
Yeah, the thing about he assumes that, Jonathan won't want to talk to him. I think that is very that's something that I feel like just romantically in general, um
Mhm.
we don't get to see characters really take the risk of, like, you don't know what that person thinks. You don't know what that person is attracted to. And I think that that is
Mhm.
really um great that that's not even a question. It's just they connect on such a sweet, emotional, vulnerable moment. And the fact that the writers can just like dash in some comedy that is both appropriate and doesn't undercut the scene, like the part who says "shut up" and you just very quickly say that's our slogan. That's one of my
That's our
favorite lines.
slogan.
That is
Oh,
one of
it's
my
so
favorite.
good.
It's one of my favorite lines of the whole season because it's so fast. And I think the first time I saw it, I didn't even catch it right away because I was
Yeah.
so it made me
Yeah,
laugh.
I mean, how lucky am I that I get the exchanges like that? And every single episode, there's an exchange that's that good. So it's I can have there's episodes where I come in and say three lines, and they're three of the best lines I've ever said. It's just
Yeah.
that kind of show. And what I love about that episode and the series as a whole is that it is so funny, but there's also this big beating heart underneath it all.
Yeah.
So it's and those two things, I feel like that's a sweet spot for me as a performer is the extremely funny mixed with a big beating heart. So um that's really I'm really excited about that. And the fact that the tone of the show is it switches and shifts all over the place in such a satisfying way. It's such a
Mhm.
exciting thing to be part of.
Yeah, the way that the way that I would describe it to somebody, someone's like, I remember when season 2 was starting and they were like, so it's a murder mystery. And I was like, yes. And they were like, and it's a comedy. I'm like, yes. And they were like, well, there's some like, because season 2 does some like really heavy stuff. Selena has some like heavy personal emotional baggage.
Yeah.
I was just like, it's sort of like you're running through a house and every door that you pass through, it's just like, all right, we add another layer of genre and tone to it, but it's never a
Mhm.
filter. Um,
Yeah.
that's the way that I describe it. I guess I'm gonna keep describing it that way. Um, I did want to ask about I spoke to Jamie Babbitt earlier this season, and
Oh, the best.
oh my god,
Jamie's why I'm there because I did well she's not the only reason I'm there, but I did right before the pandemic I did a guest star spot on League of Their Own and I had met her. It was like
mhm,
one day I flew to LA, I did one day, I met Jamie, we got along really well. She showed John the pilot of League of Their Own and John was like, "Oh, why don't we bring that guy in for Howard?" And
mhm.
that's how that happened.
I love
I
that. Oh wow.
regular audition process, but Jamie's the one who put me in front of John, which was thank God that happened. Thank God I did League of Their Own.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
so you talked to Jamie
Yeah, I
about
spoke to her
episode
about
10.
yeah, about the last 2 episodes. And I think uh the sequence at the end where like everything comes out, um the way I described it to her was I was laughing so hard that I felt like my limbs got really weak and I couldn't I had to pause it because like the slow motion thing and the tomatoes, I don't like tomatoes, so him squishing it was really, really
Really?
oh yeah, not the texture. I just really hate tomatoes. Um,
Okay.
like I remember when we watched it, my husband, without taking his eyes off the screen, he put his hand on my leg. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, it's just really great." Um, but I just wanted to know because there are so many people in that space, and I know at the same time you were filming Maisel. Um,
Mhm.
there's so much chaos in such a tight space, and it's not just funny, it's like bonkers over the top antics with the comedy, and then just the complications of the plot on top of it. I wanted to know what it was like to sort of just dive in and do it, because it's very, very rewarding as a viewer.
What was wild? It was totally wild because I don't think any of us were ever in the same room. There was never a day
Mm-hmm.
where everybody was in the same room at the same time. So I was shooting Maisel. I had gotten Maisel at the tail end of our season,
Okay.
so it completely got in the way of scheduling. And in a horrible world, they would have written me out. But I'm so thankfully they worked it out, and I would do a half day at Maisel, then come there and
Oh wow.
shoot. And then I would be constantly texting with the ADs, being like, I'm free tomorrow, I'm free.
Mm-hmm.
But I would come in and have no idea what we were doing. I just was like, wait, what part is this? Because it would just be me and Jason, who plays Jonathan, standing in a corner, and the camera would be on us. And then later it would be me and the stand in for Jason because he was doing Strange Loop Tech at the time, which was the show that he was in that won the Tony.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jackie and I were never there at the same time. Tina was there only one day. So we did it with
Right.
a woman that looked exactly like Tina from behind, um, who did all the lines. I mean, that that woman should get a medal because it is it is even being like a full-fledged character and an actor on the show. It is a little jarring to act with so many legends at one time. You sort of have to go to a different part of your brain.
Yeah.
And this woman who was the Tina body doubler, or I don't know what it's called. The woman who read all of Tina's lines, she was like thrown into the fire, and she was there with us so many days and doing that part. Um, it was it was really one of those things where you realize, wow, TV is magic, editing is magic, directors know what they're doing. This is so complicated. I just have to trust that it'll all come together. Um, it, I, when I saw it, I could not believe how funny it was and
Mm-hmm.
how well it worked together and how you could not see the seams at all.
No.
Um, it's, it's shocking. I loved fainting. It's my favorite thing.
Oh
I
my
did it.
god. That was
I
so
now I
funny.
you have to know I did all my own stunts. I'm like Tom Cruise, but a little bigger. It was I had they had a great the show has a really great stunt coordinator who
Mm-hmm.
was always there making sure I was safe and I was padded, naturally and with padding. And um and then there was a guy who was my stunt double, but he just kind of was there in case I couldn't do it or didn't want to do it, but I really wanted
Yeah.
to do it. And it was really one of the most satisfying things to just fall over and over again and break like a breakaway bowl of pretzels. It was just so fun. Um, that was the freest I ever felt on that set was just screaming and fainting.
I would love to. That's actually, I mean this. It's gonna sound like a joke, but I mean this. I was like, that is an aspirational thing. I would love to pause a scene and faint. And there's a way that I can't remember what the line is, but you like something something something, and then this, and I don't know. There's something that's very dramatic that I can tell that Howard is sort of like uh just living his best life, being super dramatic and hurling
Oh
his.
well, Howard has great theatrical ambition. Whether he is any good at it, we don't know. But um, it's part of why he's drawn to Jonathan because Jonathan is a good performer and is
Yeah.
living Howard's dream.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but oh God, does Howard want to
Mm-hmm.
act? And there's really nothing more satisfying than acting badly.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do at all. It's like a very delicate fine line,
Mm-hmm.
but oh, it's so fun to do.
Yeah. Gosh.
But the I know we're not talking about season one, but we are right now. in season in season one, I had shot some stuff alone. I had COVID in season one,
Mm-hmm.
and the big episode where they come to my apartment, I had just gotten better, and we wanted to be very safe, so I shot my coverage alone.
Okay.
And then the tail end of the season, there's some scenes that I shot alone because I was doing Dexter at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So after season one, I was like, well, I hope I didn't lose my shot at spending time with Steve, Marty, and Selena. I was
Yeah.
basically filmed quite a bit of my stuff alone. So then to have season two just have Howard back in such a bigger way, it was really fantastic. And now season three, it's like an embarrassment of riches.
The consistency that I am checking just my little Hulu screener portal for season three screeners of that. I know we're like 2.5 months away from it dropping, so it's more wishful thinking on my part, but I'm dying to see. And I love that they're changing the game in season three. Like it's shifting, so you can tell it's shifting dramatically so much in season three.
Yeah.
Like they're not playing around.
I've seen it all. And it's
Mhm.
really, 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 really great.
Okay.
It's so great.
I did
It's
have.
so great.
Is it great?
It's great,
It's
Joey.
great. um. Well, thank you, Michael, for your time. I didn't realize we were talking for half an hour already. Oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
I have to say that I just wanted to say with Maisel, I loved seeing you. I loved those Gordon Ford scenes, those writers' room scene, the bop 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 bop. I was so excited to see that entire group assembled, and another show where they sort of like change what they're doing every season.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a really fun, awesome added realm to add to a really sort of beautifully stuffed final season of Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah. And it was an incredible, like personally, I was so grateful that it kept me busy between seasons,
Mm.
almost right up to season three.
Oh
I
wow.
had a job. And um the fact that I know I am such a specific person and such a specific actor. But it was a chance to show the world again that in that specificity there's a lot of different colors. So the fact that
Mm-hmm.
Mel and Howard are in the same universe, but Mel takes up so much space. Mel is comfortable in his body. Mel
Mm-hmm.
is a. I felt Mel was a completely different energy than Howard. So to be able to have those two things airing back to back was, I felt like a great thing. Um, and it was just a fun show. I mean, those guys that we got to be in the writers' room with, it was my first group of straight male friends. Like we just like became a little brotherhood, like real writers. And
Uh-oh.
Rachel was amazing. It was a great job. Um,
Yeah, there's a scene where you walk in like late and everybody's there, and I remember thinking to myself that just the way you walked in the room, and I was like, oh, that's not how Howard walks. Like something the way
no,
Mel goes in, I was like, all right. And maybe who knows, maybe decades apart, Mel and Howard will bump into each other on the street somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
Anything else?
no, I think that's it. Just yay,
Okay.
thanks for loving Cat so much, and thank you so much
Yes,
for your time. And I'm just a big fan, so thank you.
I'm so glad to meet you. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course. All right, well, stay safe
Bye.
the rest of your day. Bye.
I will. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.